All right, today we have another video by Asmongold. Last time I reacted to a video by Asmongold, some people were really upset at me in the comments for stealing views from him. And I think that's pretty funny. They didn't like that I had titled the video that I was with Asmongold, even though it was very obvious that I am a cartoon man bear. I am not actually with him. So I think this time I'll probably title it something like, With My Best Friend Asmongold. Anyways, his video is titled, We Really Need to Talk About This. I can tell that it's going to be a serious video because he's got the potato camera out. Whenever he has the potato camera, you know it is something serious. So let's see what Asmongold has to say.
Hi guys, it's me again.
Hi.
Today I thought we'd talk a little bit about misinformation on the internet.
Oh,
I
yeah?
thought that, I don't know, now would be a good time. So in the past 2 or 3 years, I don't know about you guys, but I have seen such a massive, dramatic 10x multiplier amount of videos on the internet that are either totally fucking fake, misleading, or anything else in between, sometimes even both. And I know I hear
Yeah?
people sometimes say, oh, well, I don't see as many AI videos anymore.
There's a lot of AI videos out there. Oh my gosh, the people that say that obviously just can no longer detect the AI videos.
Yeah, I wonder why. And so anyway, I think this is what's happened, is that there is so much misinformation. There is
Yep.
so many people trying to mislead you, trying to
Mm-hmm.
cause you to think something that isn't true, trying to manufacture a false consensus. It's like the dead internet theory is almost reassuring because at least that means that nobody else would be harmed. But the reality is that
Right.
there are a lot of people on the internet that are being let off a fucking cliff by an AI video that didn't even exist. And so what I think the really like the point where I think the biggest flashpoint for this for me has been the recent conflict in Iran.
I thought that's what he was going to go to. I know that Iran has been using a lot of AI videos to try and claim that they are actually winning the war against the US when it couldn't be further from the truth.
Is that everybody is making up bullshit about this. It's like I'll watch a video and I'll be like, oh, well, what's going on here? Is this happening? Nope, it was in 2021. Oh, is this happening? Nope, that was in Ukraine.
Don't forget the footage from video games being used and trying to pass that off as actual warfare.
Oh, but is this happening? Nope, that's actually not even fucking real. And then, oh, as a bonus, is this happening? It's actually Arma 3, the video game.
Gosh dang it, Asmongold. I'm not going to beat pre-watch allegations. I did not watch this beforehand.
And so what I think has happened is that you've had so many of these different types of manipulations, and why are they happening? Why do we have all of these manipulations? Well, it's very simple. Behavior follows incentives. How
Mm-hmm.
many of these manipulations are not being paid? The overwhelming majority of them are being paid for this. So they're making money off of misleading people, and big
Yeah.
surprise, you're upset that they're misleading people. Of course they are. They are following an incentive. And I think that that incentive is the strongest on Twitter. I know that they're trying to fix this, but unfortunately, to the extent that you have basically this is what I think Twitter should do, because I think that AI and fake information on Twitter is the absolute worst. I think it is the worst platform for fake information. And just because, again, it's text message, image, and you can effectively turn off replies. There's a lot of ways that you can do it and like have people not really notice whether you're lying to them or not.
Right.
What they need to do is they need to change it into something like the YouTube Partnerships program, where you don't automatically default somebody a payment option. You don't automatically default somebody a revenue plan. They have to earn that and then have that given to them by going through a series of checks and rigor. Because
Yeah, I can understand what he's saying there. I do know that anytime a post on X has a community note on it, then it no longer receives any sort of money for that post. So that's excluded from their program. And when things are, I guess when things are obviously wrong, people are pretty good on X about putting a community note to disprove the misinformation. I guess with AI getting better and better, that's harder to do. So I feel like I understand his desire for some sort of partnership program rather than just automatically you pay the $8 a month or whatever, and now you're eligible for getting getting paid out by Twitter.
Because whenever you don't have that, well, you have, the 900th different anti-Israel or anti-Iran account that's posting images of either Ukraine or Israel getting bombed, saying it's either Iran or Israel or the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so basically that's what I think is really happening, is that people are responding to incentives. They're seeing that basically making and pushing out fake information is something that has almost zero consequences. And I think that this is also like, you've got to hold yourselves accountable for this. And by yourselves, I'm talking about myself as well. Is that really, when we find out that somebody's posting something that's bullshit, instead of asking them to correct themselves, we just move past it. And I think it's one of the it's one of the unfortunate realities of the extremely fast 24-hour news cycle that we live in nowadays, is that, you know, even things like, for example, do you remember when Obama kind of like said that there might be aliens on a podcast and like this was a huge big deal? Yeah, that was last month. That might as well have just not happened. Let's think about the time that Trump obviously released the Epstein files.
Yeah, already 2026 has been a whirlwind since the beginning of the year. We're only 4 months in, or 3 months in. We just started the fourth month, and it feels like it's been years. There's been so much happening.
How many people are talking about the Epstein files now? Substantially less than what they were.
Less than there were, but not enough. So obviously not enough. We can't let this Epstein file stuff fade away. People need to be prosecuted.
And you can check this all by Google Trends if you're unsure about any of this. And so what I think has happened is that the news cycles are so fast nowadays that there's never any room for, not only is there no room for corrections, but there's also no room even for accountability. And what's really happened is that people, instead of questioning what they're seeing, they just move on to the next thing. And so there's never any account.
I wonder how much of that is by design, the fast news cycle. If you're always pushing something new and you're always switching up the news cycle, then people don't have time to dig in and figure out what's actually true. And it likely in, particularly politicians, that's what I'm thinking of right now, it's likely in politicians' benefit to push that news cycle, to have it constantly be switching over so that their base sees whatever they want them to see, instantly believes it, doesn't have time to look into it to see if it's false or true, and moves on to the next thing. That's why whenever a controversial story comes out, you'll see it being reported by, I'm going to say both sides, despite there being many more than two sides. It'll be reported by both sides, and they'll be drastically different. And if you look into it, you can verifiably find out which one is correct or how both of them are twisting the truth. But people don't take the time to actually look into it all because everything's happening so fast and there's a new story coming along. So they just see whatever is put in front of them. I wouldn't be surprised if much of this is just by design, that is how the people in power want it to be, because it makes it honestly easier to push and control the narrative if they're constantly changing the narrative. And I do think this applies to politicians across the board.
Accountability whenever a news source gets something wrong, whenever they say something that's inaccurate. There's never an evaluation as to whether, was this done on purpose? Was it done out of just a mistake? Was it done out of haste? Why did this happen? And it's never discussed at all. And I think this is a huge problem. And the reason why is because if you have people that are, again, past performance is an indicator of future performance. Guess what? If somebody is regularly posting bullshit, guess what they're going to post after that?
Bullshit.
Probably more bullshit.
Yeah.
So what happens is that people are listening to this, they're paying attention to it, and then they see, oh my God, it's another piece of shit. It's another thing that's not even true. And people they're never able to connect the dots here. And so not only does the audience not hold them accountable, people don't really care. And this is another big issue. I've talked about this before. I don't want to get into it too much, but critical thinking is dead. Critical thinking is dead, and we have killed it. And the way that we have killed it is with dogmatic, ideological, thinking that effectively behaves like a religion. People have replaced, Christianity or Islam with, the Democrats or the Republicans, with gender ideology, with any form of, political dogma.
I think he's obviously speaking in generalities here, and in general, I agree with him that for the most part, we have killed critical thinking, but I think there are notable exceptions. There's plenty of people that do still think critically. I'm reminded of the quote from Men in Black that says something along the lines of, a person can be smart, but people are dumb, scared beasts, or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, but yeah, as a whole, I think we have killed critical thinking, which is why I think it's on each of us individually. I mean, we can't control everyone, but it's on each of us individually to force ourselves to think critically, to hyper analyze anything that affirms our own biases. That's the stuff we need to scrutinize the most, to open up our minds a bit to the things that we might immediately react to feeling like it is wrong on its surface. We need to be able to actually look at it and scrutinize it and figure out if we are wrong or if it is. Thinking critically is a skill that can be learned and can be honed, and people can get better at it. So I think we just need to prioritize it more in society. People individually need to start prioritizing their own critical thinking skills.
And so now people don't want to go against that political dogma. I think that human beings
Yeah.
have a core desire. Like imagine the human mind is like a car, and the car can drive 200 fucking miles an hour. It can go super fast, but the brake system sucks. And I think that's what's happened with the human mind, is that our ability to critically think, to perceive our realities, to be able to understand the world around us has vastly outpaced, multiple times outpaced, our ability to cope with it, to cope with those conclusions, to ask yourself, well, what does happen after you die? Well, what does happen if you do this or that? Well, what is really the right and the fair thing to do? And people are afraid of these questions because they're afraid of the answers. And what they do instead of that is they look for an ideology that's going to answer all of those questions for them so they never have to think about it again. And that's what's happened with critical thinking.
Not to just sound like a yes man, but I think people do largely look for some sort of ideology that can answer all of their questions for them, or at least give them comfort in telling them that they don't need to know the answers to these things, that somebody else will figure it out, and that they just need to trust the experts, so to speak.
Before, people used to outsource it to religion. Now they outsource it to politics, religion, or political dogma. And so what's happened is that you've had a massive entire ecosystem and culture of people that are terrified of saying the wrong thing. They're terrified of having the wrong opinion. They're terrified against going against the oftentimes manufactured consensus. And what happens is that you look at somebody like J.K. Rowling, for example, or even Elon Musk, for another example, or anybody else who's seen as a, I guess people would get mad. I don't want to name off a bunch of other content creators, just I don't want to start drama. But we all know content creators that, somebody said one thing that was wrong, they said one thing that was off color, or they didn't have the right opinion about the right topic in the right way at the right time, and for some reason, now they're a fucking Nazi. Well, guess what? Somebody's not a Nazi because they're not seeing your point of view. But unfortunately on the internet,
Unfortunately, largely on the left, you have to agree 100% or else you are labeled a bigot, a Nazi, an istophobe. This doesn't happen as often on the right. It's certainly possible. In fact, I got a comment from someone who didn't like my take on Mizkif, and he claimed that I was a neoliberal, Marxist, feminist. What else did he say? I don't remember what else he said. He was not pleased with me, and that's fine. People can disagree. We don't all have to agree on everything. I'm okay with that. But largely on the left, if you disagree 1%, all of a sudden you are ostracized and shut out, which is why a lot of people seem to be confused. They believe the same things they thought for a long time, that they always believed to be liberal and left-wing policies and left-wing beliefs, and then all of a sudden those things aren't in vogue anymore. They aren't what the majority on the left push anymore, and then all of a sudden they are out and confused about how they even got there. It's really sad, honestly. I feel bad for the people on the left. I feel bad for the people that are ostracized out of that. And as someone that is fairly centrist, I do hope that the left heals from this sickness, that they get better, so that I can support them in some of their principled beliefs again.
the way it works now. And so what's happened is that we've created a culture of fear, a culture of repressed critical thinking, because nobody wants to think for themselves. And how does this relate to misinformation? Let me explain. The reason how this relates to misinformation, like I hope that I've explained and you understand why critical thinking is dead. Critical thinking is dead is because people are afraid of the conclusions and they don't want to come out against the consensus, because if they do, they might get ostracized from their group and then nobody will like them. And then you can never wash that stain off, because people do not believe in forgiveness, they don't believe in apologies, they don't believe in understanding. The hater economy on the internet is going stronger than ever. The Dow is at 50,000, the hater economy is at 50 million. So the fact is that people are terrified of having the wrong opinion, and critical thinking can sometimes lead you to the wrong opinion. Trust the science? Okay, well, I heard the science is 2 genders. Oh, wait a minute. That's not the right type of science. And so anyway, this happens quite often. So we'll go back over and we'll talk about misinformation. Does anybody actually want to correct the misinformation about something that everybody that's, quote, on their side is eating up like a bunch of fucking candy? No, absolutely not. Nobody wants to go and correct the information that shows Israel getting bombed 500 times and tell them, actually, this is from Independence Day. Or, well, this is from a video game. Or something else. Or this is from 2019. And, or
It's because people don't want to be ostracized out of that community if they do point it out. So they sweep it under the rug and pretend like it's not happening, pretend that it's not misinformation, so that they can maintain their status within the group.
Iran or anything else. And, or like, oh, the new supreme leader of the day has now been killed again. Well, I hear this every single day. The guy gets killed every day. It's the same guy, right? I mean, must pretty much suck. That's the worst version of Groundhog Day that I could imagine. Wake up every day, you're the supreme leader of Iran, and then you die, and then it happens again the day after. Sounds pretty fucking bad, but according to Twitter, that's the world that we're in. So what I think has happened is that you've had so much misinformation, the information cycle, and this is one of the real pieces of, I think, genius that George Orwell had with, what is it, 1984, is that it was not necessarily that the news was all a lie. It was that there was so much misinformation and so much information in general that the deluge of it was so overwhelming that the mind of a person could not even comprehend the complexities, the amount of just pure volume of it, and everything. And because of that, it is effectively the sheer size of it has lulled people into a sense of effectively powerlessness. They can't overcome this. They can't like reason it out. They can't understand it. And so they just simply opt to not understand and to just listen to what they're told.
By the Ministry of Truth.
And I think, again, this is out of, I said before, fear, but it's also out of apathy and a lack of control. So what's happened is that people are now accepting of misinformation. They don't want to correct misinformation because people, as soon as somebody makes up their mind on something, well, they don't want to change their mind, because changing your mind implies that you were wrong. Why would you ever want to admit that you were wrong?
Unironically, people should want to admit that they're wrong because it's how you grow. You learn by doing things wrong and getting better by doing things wrong, correcting that, moving forward. If you want to be a better person, if you want to be better at a skill, you have to do things wrong at some point. So never admitting that you're wrong stunts your growth in whatever you're trying to become better at extremely. You are stuck there until you are able to admit that you did something wrong and move on. I have much more respect for someone who admits that they were wrong about something, admits it, and then moves forward, than someone who doubles down on their wrong take and refuses to believe the truth.
And I understand that, oh, that's not the way you should think about it. That's nice. That's nice. Go back to Reddit. So if you go over to the real world, no, people don't like changing their opinion. There's a reason why the concept of anchoring exists, especially with sales, but also you're selling an idea. So keep in mind that's the way people think of things. And so once you can create that first impression with misinformation, you can then use that first impression to create even a secondary, well, that that was fake, but, you know, this secondary thing is also still kind of true. And I think this is what happens. And it begins a self-radicalization spiral. And you see this happen with certain creators where,
good point.
as
I
soon
hadn't
as they start
considered that.
engaging with other forms of vitriolic, conspiratorial, or problematic content, they alienate the audience that was more, I don't know, normal. And instead of that, they replace them with the people that are crazy. And as that happens, guess what crazy people want? Crazy
More
shit.
crazy.
Who would have guessed? And so then you now have to continue upping the ante. This happens with IRL streamers a lot, like nuisance streamers. The conclusion of every nuisance streamer is jail.
Absolutely,
That's the way it is. That's how it is. Every single one of them, if you just let...
And it should be. Lock them up. Nuisance streamers should not be allowed.
Let it progress naturally, they will end up in jail. Because you start being annoying, and then you be really annoying, then you're confrontational, then you're violent, then you're really violent, then you're in jail. Because you always have to keep upping the ante in order to maintain the attention of the audience. And I think that's what happened with a lot of different creators, and it's what will continue to happen as well, because it's basic human psychology. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who try to subvert this. They try to say that, oh, well, we need to be better. We need to be better. Listen, we were doing crucifixions 2,000 years ago. In 2,000 years from now, we'll probably still be doing them. Maybe we'll bring it back. And so the point is that the human mind is not evolving as fast as you think it is. And at the same time, these basic human psychological realities are not despawning. They're not.
Humans in general are not evolving because we've removed many of the environmental, evolutionary pressures that would cause something to evolve. When people think of humans evolving, they typically think of evolving their mental capacity, like their stronger and smarter brains, or evolving morally, like getting better morals. It could be said that as a whole, our morals have advanced. For example, we no longer permit slavery, and a lot of that is due to the advancements in technology that enable us to produce much more and much faster without the need for slave labor in order to do it. However, our brains will not evolve because there's not much of a correlation between having a better brain and being more productive or being more successful in reproduction. If there was a causation between being smarter and being able to reproduce more, to have more kids and pass that on to more generations, then we would continue evolving our brains. However, there isn't that. In fact, we've put so many guardrails in society to protect people. And I'm not saying that we should remove them. I'm just saying that this is a reality that exists, that we protect everyone. We protect and enable those with lower intelligence, and so they are not likely to die off because of their low intelligence, and they are still likely to reproduce. And as many believe that Idiocracy is actually more of a documentary than a comedy, the people with low intelligence often are reproducing more. I believe there are studies that show that the IQ of our population is increasing year after year, signifying that there is some sort of advancement. But I do think he's right that we are not evolving our brains as quickly as some people think we are.
Going away, they're actually becoming more entrenched and actually more basically more compromised. They're being played to, they're being taken advantage of in a much higher ratio, because now you have these companies that realize, well, wait a minute, if we can just feed this retard an endless amount of information about the thing that makes him the most angry, he won't be able to stop using our app. And so now you have these people whose like blood pressure is being raised. It's like effectively these companies are killing people because their blood pressure goes up 20 points the moment they open the fucking app. And they're sitting there getting angry, tapping out these little fucking responses, and they're arguing with either a Pakistani or a bot. Well, actually, that's not true. Probably both. And so what's happened is that the amount of misinformation on the internet has just increased so much. places like Twitter pay people for uploading it. Places on the internet, like news websites, if enough people report on it and start talking about it, then news websites talk about it, and sometimes they reinforce it. And
Yeah.
there's never any due diligence. And if there is, it's like 2 weeks after the fact. It's like this story has already completely made its way around the globe. And
Yeah, it doesn't do anyone much good if you push forward a story that is incorrect and you get it in front of a million eyes. And so a million people see the story and start believing it. And then 2 weeks later, you post some sort of retraction saying, sorry, we messed up, we did it wrong. But that only is seen by 20,000 people. So most people are still believing your initial misinformation filled article. I think if a publisher is advertising themselves as a news organization, then there needs to be much better diligence and possibly legal consequences for lack of diligence in journalism.
now, nobody's even talking about it. And yeah, they don't even think about the correct.
That's not to say that I think that they should not have freedom of speech or not be able to say what they want, not be able to voice their opinions. I believe in freedom of speech very strongly, but if you're going to be advertising yourself as a news organization and claiming that the things that you are posting are true, then there needs to be some sort of due diligence there. Otherwise, it is akin to slander or libel.
Action, because the narrative has already been established and it's already moved past that original fake fact. And so
Yeah.
what's happened, I think, is that we've created a culture of misinformation. Now, the way that I think you stop this and how you deal with it is you have to look at incentives. Why do people push misinformation? They push misinformation, and again, I'm not talking about, COVID or something like that. I'm talking about literal AI videos. I'm talking about videos that are posted as if they were today and it was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with somebody posting a stupid opinion, but I do have a problem with people that are posting opinions and information that is deliberately misleading. And if those people are getting paid for it, then you can guarantee that you're going to have a lot more of it. Because I can also promise you that fake news will always be more exciting than real news. Because again,
Fake news will be more exciting than real news, and it will be much easier to produce.
is the limit. Fiction is generally much more exciting than nonfiction. I've never heard of a single dragon in real life. And so what's happened is that you've had these things kind of evolve and grow out of control, and now there is an entire ecosystem of people that are consuming this fake information, and they're being rewarded for it. They're getting more of it. They're being paid for it, and then you have people that are building their careers around it. And how do you actually stop this from happening? Well, you have to stop giving them fucking money. And I think that needs to be the point where you look at it. Now, Twitter has been trying their best to stop this and shut it down, but, I'll give it a few weeks and we'll see what happens. Right now, it sure seems like it's a pretty big problem. But my general opinion on this is that this problem will only continue to get worse, but there is a silver lining, and I will talk about the silver lining. The
Please
silver
do.
lining is the fact that if you're not a fucking idiot, it is a lot easier to understand things, and you have a tremendous advantage nowadays. And on top of that, everybody in the world is developing a general distrust of believing what they see. And I don't know if you've noticed this before, but every single image, even if it's something like, there's an image of, like Pearl Harbor, and, you'll see 4 comments, Grok, is this AI? Well, you know what? It's retarded. Yes, it's retarded, but it's an investigation. It's
something.
It's a level of thinking. It's a level of questioning that I think for such a long time hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And the silver lining of this age of misinformation is that it's also going to lead forward to an age of skepticism. It's going to lead forward to people reflexively just believing that, this might not even be true.
I hope he's right about that, because we could really use an age of skepticism.
And I think that's very long overdue, because people for a very, very long time had trusted the mainstream media. I think COVID really severed this. But before that, and even now, to an extent, if they're saying the things that you agree with, people do trust the mainstream media. And I think the problem with trusting the mainstream media is that they don't necessarily lie, but they do misrepresent. And they misrepresent in a way that can effectively completely shift the feeling, the intent, the goal, or anything like that. They can shift it entirely. And I think that people would just accept that unquestioningly. And I think that one of the silver linings of the age of misinformation that we're entering into now is that that is calling into question everything. It's calling into question all information, all sources, all like different, all primary information, all videos, all images. And I think that now that we've also created other secondary sources for people being able to, you know, say, hey, this isn't true, hey, this is not real, and being able to detect this, I do think that there will be a long-term positive effect, but it will take a lot longer than you might imagine. But hopefully, the main thing that I really hope for is that they're able to get rid of the people getting paid for this stuff, right? I don't have a problem.
I think he's absolutely right that incentives are a big issue here. This is why I actually think we need more game developers, like good game developers, to be involved in politics and stuff, because game developers spend their time thinking about incentives and how the rules that they put in place in their game will affect how a player plays the game. And those are the exact sorts of things we need in our laws and in our structures and rules that run our society, our companies, and our social media platforms.
I don't want to have people get banned, right? I don't want people to get banned. But if you're posting fake information and AI videos and stuff like that, and you're presenting it as if it's real, well, then you've got a pretty big problem. And
yeah, you shouldn't be getting paid for that.
To see how this is an issue. So again, I don't want to see anybody get banned. I don't want to see anybody get censored. But I don't want to see those fuckers get paid either. And I think that's a big problem. And the more that you have these people getting paid.
I also heard that X is supposedly going to be adding a feature to be able to block by region or something like that. So as an American, I would be able to block people from any other country if I wanted to. I think that could also go a long way into helping this, though I think that might only be for a paid feature. We'll see how that turns out.
The more this issue will continue to grow. I wanted to talk about this because I think it's going to keep getting worse, but at a certain point, I think we are very close to the climax, and after that, I could see things beginning to improve, get better, and for the, global internet awareness or the consciousness to have a much larger degree of skepticism, even with things that they believe. And that's what I hope for, and that'd
be a good thing.
Is the best thing that could come out of misinformation, but goddamn is it a painful road. So anyway, I wanted to talk about this with you guys today. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate it. And let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Thanks, Asmongold. I do think this is a pertinent topic for our time. I think it's important to talk about and think about. I'd be interested to hear what any of you do to keep your critical thinking skills sharp or to challenge your own beliefs. Share something down in the comments, and maybe something you've been wrong about before that you were certain you were right and had been proven wrong. It's okay to admit our wrongs. That's how we get better. Thanks, everyone. Oh no, you've ended up in my den. You must think that this is the end, but you have no need to fret. There's still more to come yet. Click on subscribe to let YouTube know just how far this channel should go. More will come later, or if you so need, click on another video to see more of me in your feed.